The Komi people is an ethnic group whose homeland is in the northeast of European Russia around the basins of the Vychegda, Pechora and Kama rivers. They mostly live in the Komi Republic, Perm Krai, Murmansk Oblast, Khanty, Mansi Autonomous Okrug, and Yamalo-Nenets Autonomous Okrug in the Russian Federation. They belong to the Permian branch of the Finno-Ugric peoples. The Komis are divided into 8 subgroups. The Northernmost Subgroup is also known as the Komi or Izavatas. This group numbers 15,607. This group is distinct for its more traditional, strongly subsistence-based economy which includes reindeer husbandry. Komi Permiaks live in Perm Krai and Komi Oblast of Russia. Name. There have been at least 3 names for the Komis: Permiaks, Syrians and Komi, the last being the self-designation of the people. The name Permiaks firstly appeared in the 10th century in Russian sources and came from the ancient name of the land between the Mizan River and Pechora River, Perm, often called Great Perm. Several origins of the name have been proposed, but the most accepted is from Vespera, back, outer or far away land, from Vespera, extreme, and Maa, land. In Old Norse and Old English it was known as Bjarmaland and Bjormas respectively, but those Germanic names might designate some other place than the Russian Perm. Since the 20th century the name has been applied only to the southern Komi in Perm Krai. In Russian, Permiak also means an inhabitant of Perm Krai, independently from ethnicity. The name for the northern Komis, Syrians, has a more contradictory origin. It exists since the 14th century and it had many different forms in various Russian sources such as Syrian, Syrian, Suryan and Zarian, but the latter finally became predominant. Turcan believed that it may come from a small local tribe of the Komis which first met the Russians, hence the name became default for all the northern Komis. The neighbor Finno-Ugric people call the Komis with similar names: Khanty Saran, Saran, Mansi Saran, Nenes San Ngr Saran, Udmurtsara. The name Komi is the endonym for all groups of the people. It was first recorded by ethnographers in the 18th century. It originates from the Finno-Ugric word meaning man, human. Komi kom, Udmurtkam, Mansi kom, Khanty zum, Selkup kum, Hungarian him, male. The origin from the name of the Kama River is disproved, though some scholars favor this version. Subgroups. Komi people are divided into 2 main groups and several smaller subgroups. The Komi have been traditionally named after the rivers where they live: Komi Syrians, Komi of the Ijma River, Komi of the Kola Peninsula, Komi of Nenes Autonomous Okrug, Komi of the Lower Ob and Liepan rivers, Komi of the Vychegda and Mizan rivers, Komi of the Vym River, Komi of the Lower Ob River, Komi of the Pechora River, Komi of the Vychegda River, Komi of the Sisola River, Komi of the Letka and Luza rivers, Komi Permiaks, Komi of the Yazva River, Komi of the Upper Kama River. Language. The Komi language belongs to the Permian branch of the Uralic family. There is limited mutual intelligibility with Udmurt. There are 2 main dialects, Syrian and Permiak. Until the 18th century, Komi was written in the Old Permic alphabet introduced by St. Stephen of Perm in the 14th century. Cyrillic was used from the 19th century and briefly replaced by the Latin alphabet between 1929 and 1933. The Komi language is currently written in Cyrillic, adding 2 extra letters and to represent vowel sounds which do not exist in Russian. The first book to be printed in Komi appeared in 1815. Religious beliefs. Most Komis belong to the Russian Orthodox Church, but the religion often contains traces of pre-Christian beliefs. A large number of Komis are Old Believers. History. Based on linguistic reconstruction, the prehistoric Permians are assumed to have split into two peoples during the first millennium BC, the Komis and the Udmits. By the 16th–17th centuries, the Komis further divided into the Komi Permiaks and the Komis-Irians. From the 12th century the Russians began to expand into the Perm region and the Komis came into contact with Novgorod. Novgorodian traders traveled to the region in search of furs and animal hides. The Novgorodians referred to the southern Komi region as the Great Perm. Komi dukes unified the Great Perm with its center at the stronghold of Cherdyn. As the Middle Ages progressed, Novgorod gave way to Moscow as the leading Russian power in the region. In 1365, Dmitry Donskoy, Prince of Moscow, gave Stephen of Perm the task of converting the region to Christianity. Stephen's mission led to the creation of the Eparchy of Perm in 1383 and, after his death, Stephen became the patron saint of the Komis. He also devised an alphabet for the Komi language. Nevertheless, some Komis resisted Christianization, notably the shaman Parma. The Duke of Perm only accepted baptism in 1470, possibly in an attempt to stave off Russian military pressure in the region. Mikhail's conversion failed to stop an attack by Moscow which seized Cherdyn in 1472. Mikhail was allowed to keep his title of duke but was now a vassal of Moscow. The duchy only survived until 1505 when Mikhail's son Matvey was replaced by a Russian governor and Komi independence came to an end. In the 1500s many Russian migrants began to move into the region, beginning a long process of colonization and attempts at assimilating the Komis. Sykty-Uka was founded as the chief Russian city in the region in the 18th century. The Russian government established penal settlements in the north for criminals and political prisoners. There were several Komi rebellions in protest against Russian rule and the influx of Slav settlers, especially after large numbers of freed serfs arrived in the region from the 1860s. A national movement to revive Komi culture also emerged. Russian rule in the area collapsed after World War I and the revolutions of 1917. In the subsequent Russian Civil War, the Bolsheviks fought the Allies for control of the region. The Allied interventionist forces encouraged the Komis to set up their own independent state with the help of political prisoners freed from the local penal colonies. After the Allies withdrew in 1919, the Bolsheviks took over. They promoted Komi culture but increased industrialization damaged the Komis traditional way of life. Stalin's purges of the 1930s devastated the Komi intelligentsia, who were accused of bourgeois nationalism. The remote and inhospitable region was also regarded as an ideal location for the prison camps of the Gulag. The influx of political prisoners and the rapid industrialization of the region as a result of World War II left the Komis a minority in their own lands. Stalin carried out further purges of the Komi intellectual class in the 1940s and 1950s, and Komi language and culture was suppressed. Since the end of the Soviet Union in 1991, the Komis have reasserted their claims to a separate identity. Genetics. A study on northeastern populations, published in March 2013, found the Komi peoples form a distinct pole of genetic diversity.